are grains that are soaked whole considered chametz? This is relevant, A, as most commercial flour companies first soak the grains and then grind them into flour, and B, they sell a product known as wheat berries and other similar products, which are whole kernels of wheat, which I believe are first soaked before being sold. My concern is not so much this flour or these products on, not so much using this flour or these products on Pesach, but rather if one may own such items or if it's considered chametz.
Let me quote with regards to this question from Rambam. Hilchot Hametz u'Masah Perek He Halacha Well. Rambam writes as follows: En bolalim et haseorim b'mayim b'Pesach. One does not soak barley grains in water during Pesach. Mipnei shehem rafim, because the outer husk of barley is relatively soft. It's not very hard or harsh. Umahmisim bimhera, and therefore they can theoretically become chametz without too much effort. We'im balal, and if you did soak, when we say soak, we don't mean for hours. We mean mix wash them and maybe soak them for a short time before grinding the grains. This was done in order to remove the outer husk, etc., and to make it easier to grind properly. So Rambam says, "V'im balal im rafu kadeshim hiniham al pi habiv she'ofim alav haloth yithbakeu hare elu asurim v'im lo higiu l'rifyon zeh hare elu mutarim." This is all with regards to barley grains. Note, we'll speak about wheat grains or wheat berries in one moment. A wheat berry is a wheat grain. It's the same thing. It's just a term that they use nowadays in English. In North America, I don't know why. They're not berries, they're grains, but all right, whatever. So the Hazal already were aware of an objective difference between barley and wheat. So wheat is not to be soaked in water before being ground into flour. That's the halacha. One does not do so on Pesach. If one did so, or if the barley was in contact with water for a time, and not just sprinkled for a moment or 2 or 3 or 4 minutes with water and then immediately processed in some other way, but if it was in contact with water for a longer period of time, if they became imrafu, says Rambam, if they became softened by this being in contact with this water, to the point that if you put them over a fire, in what's called a biv or a bev, which is a kind of vessel which has holes in it. It's a kind of round utensil with sides to it, in which you would place the grains and then roast them over a fire. Those holes underneath in the bottom surface, and the heat would come through those holes and it would roast or toast those grains. If you were to put them in those grains, having been in contact with water, into such a utensil over the fire, and they were to open up or they were to split open as a result of the heat, that is a sign that they were in contact with water for too long, says Rambam. Hara'elu asurim. Again, this is not just Rambam, this is straight out of the Talmud in Masechet Pesachim. I'm just quoting the Rambam because it's straightforward and concise. But if they did not reach that point, in other words, if they were in water for a few minutes, you put them inside this beef, inside this vessel, utensil, you put it on top over the fire, they were roasted a bit over the fire, they didn't crack and break open as a result of that, then even such grains of barley are mutar even on Pesach. Now, that's with regards to barley. But most of us do not eat barley on a regular basis. We don't eat bread made from barley. We don't eat masa made from barley, although you could. With regards to wheat, Rambam says in Halacha Zayin, again, this is Hilchot Hametz u'Masah Perek He, Halacha Zayin, Ahitim, if we're talking about wheat grains, mutar livlor otam b'mayim. The halacha is it's mutar to place them in water, even on Pesach, kedei lo hasir suban, in order to soften and therefore remove the outer husk, the bran from the outside of the grain, وَتُحَنِّن othan miyad, and then we immediately grind them up on Pesach, In the same way that fine flour is made during the year. So the halacha from the Mitzad Talmud, Dinat Talmud, is that you're allowed to soak grains of wheat in water. When we say soak, again, we don't mean for hours and days, because if you do that for hours and days, then the wheat grains will also become softened and will break open, and that is considered chametz gamur. But we're talking about soaking them for a short period of time in water in order to remove the outer husk, and in order to then be able to grind those grains into a fine flour, not flour which is 100% whole meal. That's the Dinat Talmud. So even if it happened, it's not chametz. Rambam adds, "Uchvar nahagu kol Yisrael b'shid'ar," which is Bavel, u'be'eretz hasavi, u'b'sfarad, u'b'arei ma'arab in North Africa and Spain, and this is essentially became the practice throughout the world. Shelo yivlelu ahitim b'mayim, not that mitzad haminhag as an extra chumrah that most of Am Yisrael or much of Am Yisrael adopted already 1,000 or 1,500 years ago. The minhag was not to soak grains of wheat in water, gzera shema yishhu yachmitzu, lest they be in the water for too long and become chametz. So normally any wheat grains or berries, whatever you call them, that you buy, and this is true of flour that you buy, because the flour is made from grains that were soaked for a short period of time. In some cases, I know because I've spoken to some people in the industry, it's not even soaked, they're sprayed with water, and then they're ground into flour. There is no reason to believe that either the grains or the flour became chametz, unless you know that they were soaked in water for an extended period of time.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.
If you are inspired by Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to get involved in Torah Eretz Yisrael activities in your local area, please fill out the relevant form by going to the link which appears on the screen.